The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
All right, guys, welcome to the V9 milling training today. This is Darren with BobCAD Training. And again, we're going to be going over milling side now. With this training, I'm not going to be going over any drawings or, learn how to draw in SolidWorks or anything. I'm just going to be going over the CAM side of it with that. So just before we get started here, everybody can hear me okay? Just tell me a quick text up there, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, well, we're going to get started there. Okay, cool. Thanks, Tom. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started here. So we're going to get some administrative stuff out of the way here. And let's see here. I'm going to move the screen over here. So a couple things we're going to go over here is the support site and training section of our website here. So under training, we'll just go to that one first here. We got overview. Now, we are traveling right now. We do have in-houses. If you guys want to come down to Florida, we'll be glad to train you, or we can come out to your place. We'll train you. We are doing those, so we do have those options in there. We also got the online training. So if you guys do have any online training on your account, get a hold of our support department. They'll get you into a class there if you guys got online training. Also, we got 3-day seminars, which again, this with the 3-day seminars, it's basically just for BobCAD standalone only. It's not for SolidWorks or Rhino, all of the other plugins that we have and stuff on there. But we do have I know some guys out there do have a standalone also, but we are doing seminars also and stuff. So those are basically all our training options that we are doing and stuff on there. Also, we have here is our support site. So on here, again, go ahead and fill out this getting started here. Now, this is all for the plugin and everything. This isn't for SolidWorks for itself there. Go ahead and fill out the support information here or login information. Give our tech support a call. They'll get you switched over to the right license status here. Once you do that, you can log in. And there we go. So all our live instructor events are right here. You'll see all the schedules here. And if you want to know if it's on, SolidWorks V9 or Rhino or something, you'll see it right here on this one. Any past events over here on the left-hand side, we got our virtual training videos. And again, you'll just have to scroll through here. We haven't done too much of the V9s. We're going to try to pick those up. I know we got a V8 right here and stuff. So we do have a couple. That's all I'm going to say. We don't have a bunch of them in there, but yeah, just scroll through there and see, which ones we got and stuff in there. I did see one V8 in there, but it's not V9. But this one will be up here by the end of the week, hopefully there. Also, in here we have once we're in the support site, not only do we have that, we have our downloads here. So I'll go to software updates here. So you got these tabs over here, BobCAD, our standalone, BobCAM for SolidWorks. You click on that. Here's our downloader. We're on 4134 there for the software update for V9 on there. It's the only update we've had on that. So yeah, you can see here we got V7, V6, 4, 3. It looks like we don't have 5 in there for some reason, but whatever on there. But yeah, you can see here we got V8, a couple of them in there. So if you guys need to update your build or something, go ahead and do that. Log in. Make sure you get in. You got to get a hold. If you guys do, just sign up. Give our tech support a call. Remember, and they'll get you signed over to the proper license account, so you can get your updates and stuff. If you just do the free login, you're not going to have access to the updates here. Also, we have post processors. So here we got a couple of options here. We got request post processor, and we got a download post processor here. So I'll just go to download post processor here, put in your customer ID if you know it. Come down here and you're going to go down to BobCAM for SolidWorks right here, V7 to V9. Those are ones that we're supporting right now. Select, what machine type you're using. And then here's a laundry list of all the different post processors that we do have currently on our website right now on there. So again, I'm going to be using the BC 3X mill, nothing special, just our default one here. I'm not going to get into, using different posts and everything because that's when it comes up with a lot of, well, what about this post? What about, nah, not going to worry about all that. But you can download any one of these posts that you want on there. A lot of times you will get a sample program here, so it's a good thing to, cross-reference with what you have on there. And, if there's any changes that need to be done, if they're really small changes or something like taking out the sequence numbers in there, give our tech guys a call. They'll be glad to log into your computer, or, you can send them the post over and say, hey, I just need sequence numbers taken off, or, I need to have R values instead of IJK values in your post, that kind of stuff in there. They'll be glad to do that. And if it, becomes a whole laundry list of items to be changed, that's when it'll probably go over to our posting department, and they'll take care of it from there on that. Now, if there's any posts that do need to be modified or you don't see one that will work for your machine, you can always request a post processor. So a couple ways of doing this here. You can fill out all the information right online here on the left-hand side. Put in, what version you're running of SolidWorks there, V9, V8, or V7. Again, those are the only ones we're supporting up to. What kind of machine type is it? Mill. How many axes? Is it 2 or 3 axis? Controller make and model, machine make and model, year build, serial number if you know all that, dealer contact if you know all that information. And then we're going to need a list of G&M codes of your machine. What do you run on your machine? I get it. We probably do have the information on our end here, but we want you to provide that for us so we can put it in a folder, because our post guys make a folder for you guys. So if there's any other modifications that need to be done, instead of, trying to figure out, what FNUC controller you're running, because there's 100 different types out there, we have exactly yours right there with all the G&M codes that you use on your machine and other information also. Also, they're going to require one sample program. I always say send in 2 or 3 if you can. It's basically one shot, one kill with that on there. The more information you can provide our posting guys, the easier it is going to get a working post processor in one shot for you on that. And again, if you don't want to, fill it out right online here, you can always download and print out the request forms and fill it out by hand, scan it back in, take a picture of it on your cell phone, email it over to us. When you do send over your G&M codes and your sample program or programs, you zip them up like it tells you right here. If it does not attach to your email or this email, it might be too large, so what you'll end up doing, you'll probably have to download it to a cloud-based system, either like Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, Amazon Drive, whatever one you're using, and share us that link so we can open it up on our end here. A lot of things, that's been happening a lot more often in there. And again, you can print this off if you need to. Other resources to get information or, technical support basically is our forum. If you go to forum.bobcad.com, and here you can sign up. It's a free sign up here. We got guys all over, not only in the U.S., but around the world that are always asking questions. And most of everybody in the BobCAD office here, we're all on this. So, we'll be answering questions for you guys and stuff. Excuse me. So, again, this is a great resource also here for you guys on that. And again, and we got different sections here. We got, BobCAM for SolidWorks discussion right here, and we got a couple of discussions going on. It looks like, yeah, nothing since April, looks like the last time, unfortunately. But, I mean, there's a lot of things going on and stuff. So, yeah, definitely check that out. And, if you got any questions, feel free to ask, and we'll definitely answer. If not one of us at BobCAD, it'll be definitely somebody around the world there. So with that, I'm going to be working in V9 here. And again, I'm not going to be drawing anything in SolidWorks or anything. I'm just going to import models and stuff and then work it off from there with that. So let's see. Just kind of take you around. You should, if you haven't downloaded it already, you should go to usually options here, or excuse me, add-ins. And if BobCAD doesn't show up for whatever reason, make sure you check it off so it will. You can have it start up every time you open up SolidWorks. You can have BobCAM also open up. Also, we also put a tab up here with our knowledge base. This is where you can set up a hole parameters, basically for hole, counter bore holes, tap holes, and counter bore tap holes on there. Each one of them has different options in there. You can put an operation list in there. It just makes it a little bit easier for when you guys go in and do your hole recognition. We know what you're going to actually do in there. So, like a tap hole, one of them on there, chamfer mill right there. If you don't want to use a chamfer mill, you can use a chamfer drill option in there, so you can change that up. You can add your own in here. You can delete any of them in there. So the knowledge base is basically set up for holes, counterbore holes, tap holes, and counterbore tap holes for you on that. Also, we got our utilities here. This is if you want to set up templates or anything. You can add templates in here on that, and you can reuse them if you want. Really, even in the BobCAD side, I haven't seen anybody actually using those yet, but I'm pretty sure there's guys out there that do use those. If you've been with us long enough, we used, and excuse me on the stupidity of this one, because I'm not sure if V8 we had it, if we were using NC Editor yet. I know V7 we weren't. We were using a Predator editor, and we'll get into this one here in a little bit here. NC Editor is our new external application that we use to open it up, and we can read our G code in there. We can also, if you're using an RS-232 cabling, you can also send through there also. On that, again, we'll open that up here a little bit. The nice thing is that, when we had the Predator editor, yeah, it's a 2005 version. So again, we phased that one out. We're going into the NC editor now. With this, the biggest thing that I liked on there is that even if you got standard in the NC editor, you're still going to get color combinations in your text there on your G code. So all your G code is going to be one color, your M call outs are going to be another color, and so on and stuff. And their raw text is going to be another color also in there. So that's really nice. I'm not going to show you the pro side of it today, but I will open it up just to show you and show you kind of around on there and everything with that. Then we got our simulation tab. This is where you can go into simulation, and then obviously when you're in simulation, this will activate, and this will you can exit out of simulation. We got our new job right here when we want to start a new job, which we will here in a minute. And then we got our settings. So with the settings here, so a couple things that have been one thing really that has been added in here is under system in general. We got our directory right here, which is nice. If you're running V8 or below, you're going to have settings part and settings default still probably in there. Where you have current documents, which is what we're working on right now, and default documents. And I'll get to those here in a second. So here's your directory for your data folder and your CAM features. If you want to place them, like I know some guys, got this on an external drive for whatever reason, you can turn it on. You can hit the three dots right here and change it to the D or E drive, whatever you may have it on in there. CAM tree flyouts. What those are is and then I'll show you once we get into a job here, is basically with the CAM tree flyouts, program numbers. That's a good one example. A lot of guys, Haas is good for this one for their machines. Instead of using 100, which is our default number in the program number, and in your post it'll say 0, 100 in your post there. With this CAM tree flyout, it'll just throw a flyout on there, and then you can change that number, hit apply down at the bottom, and I'll show you all this here later, but I'm just pointing this out right now. Hit apply, repost out your G code again if you want to, and then you'll see that new number show up in there. That's the reason for the CAM tree flyout in the software. We also have this data collection here. Now, this is anonymous, okay? We don't know where you're at in the world, who you are, what you're doing, what you're making. We don't know any of that. All we're getting is information off your software here of what you're using within the CAM side of it, okay? So, if there's something that's on the fence that can go either way, that our development guys are going to either take out of the software or maybe keep in the software, they're picking it up by this data collection. Again, we have no clue where you're at in the world, who, what, when, why, and everything in there, whatever you want. We have no clue. All we get is just numbers in there. So again, if you guys want to opt out of it, you can go into the settings under system in general, uncheck the help improve BobCAD by sending your usage statistics. You can uncheck that on there if you want. That's up to you on there. Now we got our current documents and default documents. Notice nothing really changed in there. So you can set up your CAM tolerances, your simulation tolerances, your default machining order, how you want to set that up, your toolpath color, what color do you want to set it up. Any of the changes that you made in this current document, instead of going over to default documents and doing the same thing, you just come down here and hit apply to default. Or if you do it under default, you can say apply to current or apply to document, not current document, and it'll work for current document that you're in. And then once you're done, you just hit apply and okay with that. And that's it with that. Any questions or anything so far? All right, so I'm going to go spread out the window here a little bit. Under the CAM Tree Manager tab, we have CAM Defaults. So with the CAM Defaults, if you right-click on there, you got new job, which you can do. If you've been with the software long enough, V4, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, and up here to 9, you'll remember that earlier versions. And again, I can't remember when we changed that, to be honest, on that. But a lot of times you would have to go into the CAM Tree Manager here, right-click on CAM Default, and click on New Job. I still do that occasionally in SolidWorks here, but I've been trying to train myself to go into New Job up here. So with that, again, I know there's some guys that will still do it the old way, which is fine. We got our job from templates, if you want to use that on there. Any of the default templates that you save, you can open those up and use those templates. We got our current settings. So with the current settings here, this is the default, remember. So you got your machine parameter. You can choose what kind of machine. Again, you'll have a whole laundry list of them in there. Probably not as much as I do because I work with customers every day and all day long here. So I usually grab their machines, or I'm creating one and helping out with posts also occasionally. You got different types in here that you can choose from. We also got an add, delete, and modify. I wouldn't delete any of the ones in here. If you're specifically using like a Haas or a Fanuc, a certain type of Fanuc or a Mach or, I don't know, Siemens controller on here, please don't delete all the machines and posts in here on that. Because sometimes you might want to have to go, we might end up having to go in and, looking through, maybe if you got a Fanuc post, you got something wrong with that post, and we use the BC3X mill because that is a Fanuc based post. We want to probably cross-reference and see if everything was working or not working or something like that in there. So, but yeah, just don't go ahead and delete all these in here on that. Just leave them. What you can do is you can set up as a default on your one. So every time you right-click and do a new job, your proper machine and post-processor will show up if you save it out as a default. Make sure you get the number of access. You can also add your own machine. You can modify this machine if you want to. You can change it to laser plasma water jet on here, whatever you want on there. If you hit add, you can add, once you go into type, you can see here you got mill, turn, wire, lathe, water jet, plasma, laser, milling. You can choose all different ones, and you can choose how many axes, that kind of stuff. Now, we do have on YouTube, and they're a few years old, but they're still work to this day because it's still the same setup and everything. If you type in BobCAD space machine configuration or machine definitions, you'll get a whole bunch of different videos on setting up your own machine if you want to. And it'll go in and setting up these machine definitions and what they're used for and everything in there on that, and then why we use them. And again, this is if you have Machine Sim Pro also, then you'll want to set this up on there. And if you got models of your machine, it'll show you how to import those in there. But if you guys do have Machine Sim Pro on your license, and most of the time the mill turn, multi-axis type machining guys out there, people out there will, get a hold of our post department. And when they create your post, they'll even do a machine definition for you because you probably got Machine Pro on there. Now, we are going to require, with that said in there, a little caveat there is that we do require you guys to get the parts for the machine and send them off to us on there. We may have the machines, but again, if you can send it to us and we can put it in your file, and that if there's any changes that needed to be done, we got it all in your file and everything there. So again, we got the machine definitions for this. Let's see, let me jump back up here. So in here you got machine parameters. You got a number of tools that you can set up in there, how many tools that you guys use on your machine, especially if you got an automatic tool changer. Honestly, I've never messed with this part, the rapid feed. I have adjusted my max spindle speed and my cutting feed rate. And the reason why is on my machine, it was a router. I can run, a max of 18,000 RPM on the spindle speed and like 200 on the cutting feed rate. Actually, I think it could have gone higher, but 200 was always my sweet spot for whatever reason. But anyways, most of the time I would see it in my spindle speed. So I would change this to maybe 20,000 right there. So when I put in my 18,000 RPM, I would see it come out in my post. If I left it at 10,000 and put in, in the tool page, 18,000, it would come up as 10,000 instead of 18 on there. And it's because it wasn't changed here and in my post processor too. So you might have to get a hold of our tech guys and they can get that changed up for you also. Also, you got your posting page. This is where our post is located. It's in the C drive, data, BobCAD-CAM data folder, BobCAD-CAM version 9, 8, 7, 6, or 5, whatever version you're running, in the post folder, mill folder, and then what your post processor name is as a dot. Mill post, if you're V7 and below, V8 and above should be a dot BCPST, I believe there. And that just indicates either, in the older version it was mill or lathe on there. Now it's just a BobCAD post. Also, we got here our NC file path. We're going to make a copy of it. It's going to go into the data folder, BobCAD-CAM version, whatever you're running, NC and mill. Also in here, if you downloaded, for example, a post from our website, again, we're going to set up a generic machine on there with your post processor name on there so you can identify it a lot easier. But you want to come in here into the posting page. Now, again, they're going to set it up just as a generic in here. So NC file extension, they're going to put a .nc on all those posts that are online. I guarantee you they're all .nc in there. So you'll have to come in here and change this, because that's kind of one of the common things that I've seen through the 9 years I've been here, working in tech support too, is that, guys, you know, that's the first call they make. You know, hey, I downloaded a post. I need it to be a .txt, GCD, .mc, whatever you're using on there. So that was just a common thing that, you know, that came in a lot, and it still does occasionally on here. But I always try to do in these live events, doesn't matter if it's standalone, BobCAD, or SolidWorks here, or Rhino. I always point this out. Change this if you need to. If you're, like I said, it's a default extension that we put in there on that. Program number. So we're going to have program number here. What this is if you guys are running, you know, if you guys want to change it, doesn't matter what the number is, you can leave it as a program 100. I know on my machine, it was always 100, 100, 100. I know some guys either like to do it or they have to do it on their machine. So you can change it here if you want. I don't suggest that, especially if you're running V9. I'll show you where you can change that easily on there. Then we got our start numbers or sequence numbers here. So by default, if you guys are using sequence numbers, I know a lot of guys don't use sequence numbers, and that's fine. Or if they do, this is where you want to change it as a default. Instead of changing it every time you go into set up a new job, you can do it as a default here. So you got your start number 1 to 1. You can have 2 to 1. You can have 5 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 20, whatever you want in there, increments in there. We also have here our absolute and incremental setup here. Now, I don't know when this changed for SolidWorks. I know in the standalone it was V24 to V25, so it had to be like V3, V4, V4, V5 on there. In the post, in the default, in the setup, current settings here, excuse me, you can set up either run absolute or incremental on your post. Now we can't do that. It's all set up in the post processor. So if you want to change, again, this is something you'll have to get a hold of our tech support on. They may have you fill out a post request or modification on that in there. In fact, they probably will, because that's something that they probably not going to do, you know, right on the fly. But again, I could be wrong on that. The guys in tech support now are really bright young guys in there. So they'll probably do it for you. If not, it'll be a post modification. Our post guys will actually take care of it. Any which way, we're going to get a copy of it so we can have, you know, a backup of it also in there. Then you got your use transform plane, your output 4-axis NC program. Again, those are multi-axis in there. We also have an option in here for machine rapid handling here. So Haas is good for this one for dog-leg rapid moves in there. It used to be a code that we used to put into the post, but now they just they made it in the background of the software and the post processor, magic of our development guys, and they took care of that for us. So if you do have issues with dog-leg rapid moves, you just check this off and it will come out correct on your post processor. And then we got output comments here. So if you want any raw text to come out on your post or something, and I'll show you when we get into there, you can set it up and you can fill out all the information from there on that. From there, we have our MultiAxis Posting. Do not touch this. This is something that you and I should never touch on a regular basis. You guys shouldn't touch it. I touch it very rarely if I need to, if I'm testing something out, and the only time I really do is in mill turn. If I need to check something out, I'll usually change like the rotational limits to maybe probably no limits, and then if whatever I'm testing, I always go back to it on there. I know on certain multi-axis machines, instead of using machine comp and Z only, you may have a let's see, TCP there. You may end up using that, or origin tracking, whatever you're using on there. And you got different options in there for multi-axis simultaneous, indexing and positioning, that kind of stuff in there, or standard milling on that. So again, try not to mess with this page on there. Again, I try not to even go in this. It's more of our posting when they're setting up your machine and post-processor. If you guys have something being done through our post-processor, they'll go in and adjust these parameters and get it set up for you. But anything that you've changed in the posting, machine definition, or machine parameters, go ahead and hit save as default if it's your default machine. Now again, if you guys are running multiple machines, whatever your primary one is, that's going to be your default one, and then you can hit the drop down in the stock wizard later on, and I'll show you how to do all that here to get what you need, whatever machine and post you're using with that. Also in here we have our cutting conditions, so you can set up your whatever your center drills, your pecking, your reamers, chamfers, counterbores. You can set those up. Now, I've only seen this a handful of times of guys actually setting these up. They just usually do it right on the fly, especially for the pecking on there. And that packing amount looks a lot different than what I have on my standalone, but that's fine. Again, you can adjust it right on the fly. And this is stuff you don't have to set up immediately. You can set up later on down the road if you need to. All right, so with that, let's cancel out of that. And we'll right click again here, and we got the DMS defaults. Now, the easiest way to explain these, if anybody's running like laser plasma or water jet, under the milling here, under 2-axis template, we have profile. When we go in to do a 2-axis toolpath and we happen to do a profile on there, and even router guys, I would even do this occasionally on my software, on my other computer. But anyways, specifically laser plasma and water jet guys, they would come in here, take out the rough because they don't need to have that, and they'll exit out here. And then all they'll have is when they get into machine strategy, because all they're doing is profile cutting. They're not doing pocketing, chamfers, drills, blah, 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 so on in there. They're basically just doing profile cuts on there. So they'll get rid of it, so they don't need to worry about, you know, in the patterns page, the standard side roughing or contour ramping, or on the parameters page, all the allowances are set to 0. Those are kind of things that you know, they don't need to worry about and stuff. Where, you know, on my software, personally for a router, because I was doing a lot of flat router cutting, I would get rid of the finished toolpath and just use the rough. And a lot of times I would use either like contour ramping, if I didn't do standard, basically keep tool engaged the whole time. On my parameters page, which would be the next page after that, I would have to change my side allowance to 0 because, again, I wasn't coming in with a finishing tool. Again, it was a lot of flat router cutting I was doing a lot of times on there. So I did a little bit differently on there. So, but that's what the DMS defaults when you get into, you know, your strategies page there. Again, you can change like strategy 1. You're going to see Z-level rough and planar. Z-level or strategy 2, you'll see planar and Z-level finish. These are ones that you can change. So if there's something that you like to use all the time, like on this one, you can get rid of the planar, for example. And we got an advanced rough and Z-level rough, or, you know, let's get rid of that and use advanced Z-level finish. So we got an advanced rough with an advanced Z-level finish, and that's going to be under strategy 3. So it's not going to be the default one that we have in there. What does DMS stand for? Dynamic Machining Strategy on that. That should answer your question. DMS, Dynamic Machining Strategy on there for that. So then we got strategy 4 where you got 2 advanced roughs, equidistant, and pencil operation. Again, we're going to go in a lot of these operations here later on here with that. So any other questions with the DMS, which again stands for Dynamic Machining Strategy? And the funny thing was, somebody asked that a couple weeks ago when I was in Dallas on a seminar, asked me what DMS was, and I totally blanked out on there. I had to log in, open up our help file and find it because I just totally blanked out on there. I must have had too many tequilas or something that night. But anyway, no, I'm just kidding about that part. But I blanked out, so now I remember that every time now. So that's why I said it 3 times just to make sure, so you guys wouldn't have to worry about that. Let's see, we got our tool library. So with the tool library here, looks a little bit different. V8 should look a little different and below on there. We did change it up here a little bit. You can see we don't have the modify options or anymore. We don't have a lot of things going on in there. They kind of confuse guys earlier in the software there, as far as setting up tools, opening, modifying and adding new tools. We kind of hopefully simplified it. So basically here, again, this is all defaults in here. So you're going to see lathe, generic, which is our probing options in there. We also got laser, plasma, water jet. Now, again, this is, like I said, this is all default. So you're going to see all the tools in here. We also added in different types of barrel tools in here now for V9. So you can see all our barrel tools right there. We also got drag knife. If you choose any one of these, I'm going to go like end mill rough here temporarily, or for an example, and choose like this 3/8 tool. And over off to the right here, you got your tool parameter here. So with that, you have, this is in a modified state now. So come in here and you can modify any one of these tools, okay? All the preloaded tools in here are modifiable. You can come in and change it to maybe carbide and tool number 1 in there, depending on how you set it up. You can assign a tool holder. You can come down here to the feeds and speeds. If you uncheck use system feeds and speeds, you can put in, whatever spindle, plunge feed rate, and cutting feed rate that you want to use for that tool on there. Now, with that said there, when you're setting up the tools and the feeds and speeds on here, if you're going to do this, something like this null and voids basically what our material library is calling out for feeds and speeds on there. So kind of be careful. It's kind of one of those things. Do you want to, you want to use our material library as your feeds and speeds, or do you want to input your own in there? It's kind of up to you, and honestly, it's like an 80-20 split when for me when I talk to customers on this. And again, I don't know what's considered an older machine, what's considered a newer machine, blah, that kind of stuff. But when they say, hey, I got this home-built machine and the feeds and speeds that you guys have for carbon steel or titanium or whatever are perfect for my machine, hey, go for it. I'm not going to stop you on that. But then again, we got guys with newer machines, and they're like, hey, your feeds and speeds are old. I get it. 9 years ago, 10 years ago, development opened up an MCS catalog and said, here's the feeds and speeds that we're going to use for materials under the material library here. And that's what they used on there. They just haven't updated it because it's a big undertaking to do that on that. Trying to, so it is a big undertaking on that. So you got kind of 2 different ways if you want to do this on here. Now, when you put in the feeds and speeds here and you choose this tool here, it does not matter what material you're using. It's going to go by what you inputted right here. So, if like I said, if the material library feeds and speeds are not correct, I would suggest putting in your own feeds and speeds and maybe overdoing it, and you can dial it down from there. That's up to you on that. So again, you can modify any of the tools, you can add any of the tools, you can delete any of the tools. I would not suggest deleting any of the tools that we have in here off the computer. I've had guys do that and they're successful with it, and that's totally fine. I'll back you up 100% on there, but I don't recommend that because if there's for example, one guy that I did an on-site with a few months ago, I was telling him about there's tool cribs that you can make, and I suggest you guys making tool cribs, and we'll get into that one here in a bit. But anyways, he went in and modified the tool library. But the only problem is that he did not make a backup of it. I suggested that he does make a backup of it, in case something happens. Some things do happen, whatever happens in the world, that software goes down on you for whatever reason. You lose your tool library on there. And I've seen that happen for, it could have been a Windows update. It could have been, Active God or whatever, I don't know. Anyways, you call our tech support guys. They have no way to retrieve your tools that you created in this tool library. They're going to give you the default ones over again on there. So that's where you can save out. You can save as right there. Save out your tool library. I don't suggest doing that one. Just keep all the tools in here and just add into the tool library on there, or modify this one on that. So, and then also save it to like a thumb drive or something, or on a cloud base. I had one guy save it somewhere on his computer, saved it to a flash drive, saved it to a cloud, and then I think he saved it on something else. I think on a external drive too. So he had like 4 or 5 different places. He saved out his material library, his tool library, his tool crib, his features. He was just well prepared basically on that. So again, you can set up tool assignments also. I think there's a video online, I believe. I'll have to double check. V9, we've gotten in with Machining Cloud. So if there's tools that you do want to import in, you can use this Machine Cloud. I'm not going to go into that one today, but we do have, and it's the free sign up on there. You just download the tools and they'll import it. You can import them into our tool library here on that. And they'll show the tool holders if you want and that kind of stuff in there. So again, you got your tool library here. Also, we have our mill holders. Again, these are CAT 40, 50, and BT 40. So again, if you want to add, delete, or modify or edit any of them, you can. You can see you got, you can choose either cylinder or cone in this one. With that, you can also do a chop, chamfer, top fillet, that kind of stuff. You can do a bottom chamfer, bottom fillet if you want. You can set up, height, diameters, that kind of stuff in there if you need to. In there. So you can modify any one of these if you want to. And you can see we got Renishaw now in there. There's our CAT 50s and our BT 40s in there and stuff. So again, you can add your own. You can modify any one of these if you need to. Then we got our adapter libraries. I'm not going to go too far into this one because this is more for the mill turn live tooling people out there. So you got VDI adapters, which you got, different adapters you can either edit in here. And with these, you can either load an STL in here, or you can modify it or add your own, draw it up in here on that. But yeah, you can see these are set up just a little bit differently than the regular tool holders. These are, like I said, for the mill turn live tooling customers out there and stuff on that. And you can see you can move those around and everything. Then let's see, we got that. And then we got our thread and material library. So it's thread library. there goes all our different tabbing groups that we have, you know, BA all the way down to UNS in there. You got UNC. So again, if you want to add your own tabbing group, if you don't like the ones that we have, or you got something different that you want to put in there, you can add your own tabbing group, and then you can put in your own thread list here. Now you could add or modify any one of these threads in here. I'm just going to hit add a thread here, add or modify, both the same screen. You just fill out all the information along here, and you can add your own threads, or you can modify any of the threads that we have in here. I had one customer wanted to know how to add his own threads, and I showed him because I think it was UNF, I think it was. So whatever he was doing on there, whatever was in between the 080 here and 1.5, 12 here, there was something in between that he had to put in. I can't remember what it was, but anyways, yeah, I showed him how to add the new threads in here that he needed, and you can modify them also on that. Also, we have in there our material library. So again, these are older options in here for the material library. So by default, the material that shows up is carbon steel. So if you guys don't use carbon steel, you use either plastic, aluminum for whatever reason. You can scroll through, you know, different types of aluminum here. You got 60, 61 T4. The T451, you can add that as, you can save it as a default, so every time we go through the stock wizard and we get done with the stock wizard, that the material is always going to be that aluminum in there. You can modify this material, and you can choose what kind of tool material you're going to be using on it. Is it carbide, insert, high-speed steel, HSS? On there. You can also add your own new material, tool material. And whichever one you choose here, you'll notice that all these numbers are changing in between them. Like I said, they just opened up a catalog there and went through and put in all the surface feet per minute, this SMM in there, all that kind of stuff in there. You can change the, you know, the stock material if you want to. If you check this off, you notice you can come in here now. This is all active in here. You can come in and put in your own options and stuff in there for the SMM, surface meter per minute, chip load, and flutes per plunge chip load here. You can set those all up on there. And you'll notice that, you know, when you go and do each one of them in there, let's see, I think I may have changed one, I don't remember. Hit something accidentally in there, but whatever, I'm not too worried about it on there. So whatever you want, if you guys know all this, go ahead and put that in there. If not, you'll be fine any which way there with that. Let's see something here. Oops. So yeah, we got different materials that you can set up if you need to in there and stuff on that. So any questions or anything so far? All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to come up here to the CAM tab, BobCAM tab up here, and we're going to click on New Job. Once we click on New Job, depending on what you guys got on your license here, you're going to see turning and mill turn active, or you may see them grayed out on there. Somewhere along the line, you may have this checked off or not in there. By default, it should be checked off. I know in earlier versions, it was not checked off, and that caught me off guard every time on there, because I'd have to go in and right-click and, you know, start the stock wizard over again for whatever reason. So make sure that's checked off, because once we hit the green check mark right here, it'll go right into the stock wizard portion of it for us. Then we got our machine. Again, this is all looking at the different mill machines that we have for 2, 3, 4, and 5 in here. So you can choose whatever one you're going to want to use. Again, mine's going to look a little different than yours. I'm going to use the BC3X mill. We're not going to use any templates or anything, so I don't have to worry about the drop down. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and hit the green check mark right here. And this brings up our work piece here. You see it showed the CAM tree a little bit there. and then it goes right into the stock wizard. So the solid body is if we want to use the model here as our workpiece. Again, you don't have to use it if you don't want to. It's only if you have a solid model. You can utilize it in the simulation. It just lets you see when you're cutting if you're going to have any gouges, or if you're cutting too deep or not deep enough or not, wide enough. You'll see that in the simulation. But again, if you don't select it, it's fine. And you do want to have a workpiece in there, and you do have a solid model on your screen here like we do, we're going to use that solid model as a workpiece anyways when we go into simulation. So it's kind of, you can do it if you want, or you don't have to. From there, I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to worry about it today. I'm going to go ahead and hit the next button right here. This brings up our stock type here. So right now we're looking at a rectangle here, but we have an option here for a cylinder, wireframe, solid model, STL, and revolve. So you can choose any one of those in here. So I'm going to use the rectangle here. And then moving on down, I don't need to worry about any offsets or, what direction it's going. Everything should be good. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and hit the next button here. This brings up my snap points for setting up for my machine 0 or part 0 in here. So my origin is already selected, so I can come in here and choose either a snap point off my solid model. I can go right there if I want to, or I can choose any one of the snap points that are showing up on my screen here. So you can see, you can put it at the bottom if I want, or at the top. If I need to change my direction of my X and Y, I can do that. So if I want my X to go, down where the Y is, I can click in the box right here and choose that snap point, and you see my X and Y change on there. I can also change my X and Y if I needed to, or my Z. So if I go here to Y and choose there, it's basically went back right to where I want it in there. Or I can pick from an existing UCS if I have one set up, or if I need to. Also in here I got my clearance plane. The clearance plane is the safety of your tool to move in out the position or back to the home position. Once it's done, it's going to, once it comes out of the part, if it's or off the part, it's going to go 1 inch above the part there and move either home or out to position or home position, whichever one you're doing there. And again, that's a number that you can change right there. We also got our work offsets here. So this work offset that you see here is a global one. So when you're going through any one of the tool operations, 2 or 3 axis there, you will see in the posting page work offset. That works individually on there. So with the work offset here, if I set it to work offset, 3, which would be G56, every time I go into posting on this part, whatever, pocketing or profile or plunge rough, whatever I'm doing on this, when I get to the posting page, it's going to show the work offset 3 in there. So I don't have to change it. A lot of times people forget about that and just do it right on the fly, which I still do to this day if I'm using it on there. So, but again, work offset 1 is G54, work offset 2 is G55, and so on in there. And unless your machine is set up differently, I know on my machine it was G901, G902, 903, and so on in there. Picking up a base point, this is if you got Machine Sim Pro on there, so I can come in here and say, let's see, pick this, there we go. If I can enter the numbers here if I know the X, Y, and Z on there, or I can come in here and say, my base point is right here, and it's 2 inches down in Z. So Machine Sim Pro, I'll get to your question there in a second, Ken. Because I got Machine Sim Pro and I can show my machine, it's actually, the way we set this up is actually going to be, it's going to be everything from down here. It's not going to be up this way. So basically my machine is going to be underneath here on top of everything there. Let's see, Ken's got a question. And since you have a solid model with the feature, Why did you choose rectangle? Because it picked the overall, let's see, let me go back here. And you know what, let me take off this real quick. Yeah, I'll just leave it there. Because rectangle here will pick up the overall X, Y, and Z of the part on there. I could have probably done the same thing with wireframe also and just, did a loop selection around the outside here. But rectangle actually picks up the X, Y, and Z of this part here on this. Does that kind of answer your question there? All right. Yeah, that's in, if I choose cylinder, which I think on one of the parts I have a cylinder on there, you'll see that also. It'll pick up the overall X, Y, and Z of that part also on there. It's just an overall part. And again, I can add in, extra. I didn't do it on this one here, but I can add in, extra, where to go here, offsets right there. I could do like 1 inch off to the left and right if I want to make it bigger and stuff in there. Whoops. Let me go ahead and make that 0. And you kind of got to be careful on how I do this in here. But for right now, just for this demonstration, I'm just going to make it use rectangular stock and use the X, Y, and Z of this part on there. And again, I put my reference or machine 0 or part 0 at the top middle of the part here. And then from there, you'll notice I don't have any more arrows pointing to the right. So I can come over here to the green check mark and click on that. And there we go. So now we got our job set up here. Any questions or anything with that so far? All right. Before we get into the job section here, let's go ahead and take about a 5-minute break. We'll come back in and we'll look at the milling job of this. All right, we'll talk to you guys here shortly. All right, guys, we're back here. Excuse me. All right, so any questions with the stock wizard so far? Give me a couple seconds here and then we'll move forward here. Excuse me. All right, so under the milling job now, if you right click on there, we got current settings, machining order, post and save as. With the current settings, let me go into that one here a little bit here. So now remember, this is all job level now. So whatever you do on this, for this job and this job only, it won't reflect on the next job that you do. That's where you have to do it under default settings. So, for whatever reason, if you need to adjust the spindle speed here, cutting feed rate, in the posting, make sure that's all set up here. Make sure your automatic output comments are here. You can do all that. Notice there's no machine definitions now because that's all done in the default settings on there. Also, you got in comments here. So if your post allows it, I know there's a yes/no question in your post processor to output this. We got the output user comments here. This is where you're going to have raw text showing up in your post processor with either, instructions of what to do, how to do it, when to do this, whatever you want. Lunch orders in some cases. I'm guilty of that one on there. I've done that. I put my lunch order in a couple of times on there just so the guy that's running it on the machine, he knows what to order you from the local McDonald's. Anyways, you could do that, kind of stuff in there. So that's nice to have with the current settings in here. And again, this is all machine or job level setting in here. And again, you can choose, a different machine if you want to also in there. Machining order, again, we're not worried about that one quite yet. This is, we'll probably look at this one later on when we go into simulation and see, it'll go by tool by default, but if you want to do by feature and, do those tool changes if you need to, you can do this, or you can come in here and adjust it from either individual tool per machine setup or individual tool to individual feature what you have set up in your tree. So again, that can make a difference too. Also, we got our post and post and save as. Post is where you're going to generate your G code on there. You can actually do that with this icon right there. Yep. And that's your post and save as right there. Those two icons, post and save as right there. I don't use those too much just because I'm, and I know there's a couple of you guys out there. We're all getting older. It's kind of harder to see these little icons up there. But guys with better eyes will probably end up using those. But I usually right-click, do the post. I never do a post and save as just because I want to see the G code first, make sure everything's working out just the way I need it. Then I can save it later on if I want to. Generate sheet setup and generate sheet setup and save. Again, I do the generate sheet setup. You got different options in there for the mill setup, tool list, or tool list simple. I'll just look at the full setup here, which showed up on my other screen, which you guys can't see. There we go. I'll just drag it here. Come on. There we go. So again, this is just a default one that they just put in here just so you can see what's going on. And it's actually a wire one for whatever reason. And again, we got something online on YouTube. If you type in BobCAD generate sheet setup, there's a video on how to modify this if you need to, especially if you want to get rid of this logo and put your logo in there. That's always a common one that guys want to do is on that. So in that video, I'll show you how to do that. So you got your file, your post, the machine, date and time that this was created, number of your program data, because the mill is going to be a little bit different, so I'll just go over the overall. It takes a screenshot of your part model out on your screen or how you got it set up in there. You got your stock information, and then the number, all your different types of cuts with all the feed rates, the times that it's all going to take. And again, this is set up for wire for whatever reason. Now, reason why somebody would use this is one company I was working with, they print this out, and then they gave it to their bookkeeper, and then that's how they billed their customers, was whatever was off the sheet here on that. Another company I worked with, the programmer would put this all on in they had like 5 different machines that they were running mill, wire, and I think a lathe on there. But anyways, the guy programming everything would put these in print this out, put it in a clear plastic bag with a thumb drive that would have the G code in there, and put it on that machine for the day. And then the guys coming in, they would know what they're doing. They'd have all the information right here, and then they can load up the program or programs, because sometimes they'll have 2 or 3 that they're doing that day on that. So again, the generate sheet setup is a real nice option to have also. Then we got the simulation here where you can go into simulation. You got toolpath statistics. This is basically, you can open that up and you can see, how much. It's a generate sheet setup, but it's just a non-printable. It's just something that you can see right on the fly. See how long it's going to actually take, cut a part out, how much time you're going to need. You can update compute all geometry and toolpath here. Basically, the easiest way to explain that one is I got my machine 0 in the center here. If I changed it to any one of the corners, and I got like 6 different toolpaths going on, I can come in here and say update all geometry, and then left click on compute all toolpath, and it will auto adjust, do all the work for me in the background. So I don't have to go through each one of them, going through and doing all the geometry selection, computing, blah, 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 all that, and so on. You got post and yes, no in there, and what that is that if there's certain toolpaths that you don't want to run, say you got an older machine, you don't have an automatic tool changer. So what you'll do is you got 5 different features on there. You'll do a post yes, no on 4 of them, and then one of them will be open. So you'll be able to run the G code on that, so you can get that to your machine. And then you'll do a post yes, no, and close that one out, and then you'll do a post yes, no on your next one down. And then we'll open that up, and you can just allow any posting on certain features. Blank unblank is basically where I can blank out all the tool paths or certain tool paths. If I left click on it, then it will allow me to see it temporarily. When I click on something other than that tool path, it'll go away. That's what that is. I got my cutting conditions. I got my job templates I can save out. I can add a setup. I got hole recognition, which we'll go into a little bit later here. And I can delete this milling job if I want to, and I can collapse, expand, or rename it if I want to in there. System default, if I need to set up a template, again, set up my default template in here. If you got an arrow here, always expand it because this is your machine. This is your post right here. Again, if you right click on that, you can edit your machine, change it to a different machine, maybe like a 4X mill, and you'll notice that the post also changed also in here. So again, I'll just change that back to BC 3X mill. There we go. And there's a 3X mill post. I can, if I don't want to change the machine, but I want to change the post, I can always right click on that, say edit, hit select. It should take me right into the mill folder here, and I can change to a different post processor if I need to. I got my milling tools. So in here, I got my tool library. Now, if I click on when I click on the tool library here, hello. Remember, this is all in tool level now. So I won't see the lathe. I won't see laser, plasma, water jet in there. All I'm going to have is all my drilling options. It includes tapping, all my milling tools right here, and also my generic tools, which are the probing ones that we do offer now in V9. Again, we're not going to be going over to probing at all in this session here. So again, here I can change, any of the tools that I need or anything in here. And these are all at tool level. I'll come to the tool crib here in a second. We got the holder and verified tool assignment. Tool holder, if I want to change different tool holder, I can do that. Instead of using whatever the default is, I can change to a different one. Verified tool assignment, you'll have all your tools showing up right here. And basically what you can do is you can uncheck the automatic tool numbering. The new numbers will show up. You can double click in each one of the tool numbers, and you can change the tool numbers if you want to or need to. I know some machines, you do have to have certain tool numbers in there because that's what they have in their background and stuff on their controller. Tool crib. This is nice. What this is a lot of times a lot of multi-axis guys will use the tool crib because they got certain tools that they use. But 2, 3 axis, they're perfect to have, especially if you got multiple machines. So say you got a Haas machine, a Fanuc, and a Mach, and each one of those machines have different tools on there, but you're running one copy of SolidWorks with V9 on there. What you can do is you can load in all the tools in this tool crib, and you can save it out, and it should go into C drive, data, V9, technology, and there should be a cribs folder. So you'll save it in the cribs folder here on that, and it's going to save it as a tool crib, milling tool crib. That's what the MT stands for on there. And then you can load that in every time. But be careful when you do save this out. Every time you go through a stock wizard, before you put one tool path on there, use the tool, and you got a tool crib already set up, open up tool crib first. Because what's going to happen is when we go into a tool path operation there, it's going to look in the tool crib first before the tool library. But if you don't have a tool crib, we look in the library first and decide what tool is going to be used first. Now, again, I'm going to be using the tools library here, so I won't be using a tool crib at all. And you can import it here. You can also transfer it over to another computer if you need to. So tool cribs are good to use if you want to use them. Workpiece, if you want to select a workpiece, you can. But again, we got a solid model. It's going to show up as a workpiece in our simulation anyways there. And then you can see here I got carbon steel as my material. If I want to change that, right click and change the material here and go to aluminum, and maybe 60, 61, I guess. I don't know. I'm just guessing on this. 66, yeah, that should work. And say okay, and you can see it just changed right there. Here I got my stock. If I right click on there, it'll take me into the stock type and the stock wizard, and I can redo my stock wizard. If I want to change the color of my stock there, I can change it to, let's say, yeah, let's go yellow here. And you can see it change to a yellow, somewhat of a yellow. And the reason why you don't see it too well is because of the transparency. So right now it's running low. So if I keep it down low here, say okay, there's my stock right there. Now, because of the color combination that's in the SolidWorks and whatever, the yellow, it's just not jiving too well with that. You can see basically there, everything's there. It's just kind of hidden with that whole stock, and it could be kind of hard to select geometry if I need to, or the proper geometry. So I've seen what some guys do is under the transparency, and again, you can set this as a default. They use the high. So basically it's there, but it's not there. It's invisible on this. So again, you can do that if you want, or you could do transparency. I'm going to come back down to about here, say okay. There it is right there. And I'm going to use what's called blank unblank. So if I left click on stock, you can see it shows up right here. If I left click on something else other than stock, it goes away because I got it blanked out right there. Then we got our machine set up here. So in here you can see if I go to edit, this will take me to the last page of our stock wizard. So for whatever reason, like the clearance plane, if I need to change that, I can do that right there. If not, I can X out of that right there and get it all set up. If I right click here, I can set up work offset patterns, hole recognition, probing. I can go through all my tool paths right here. So any questions or anything so far? We're going to kind of get started here. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here, and we're going to look at just two axes right now. So we're going to start off with mill facing here. Because we set up our stock on there, that's what we set our stock up to and everything. With this new mill facing, if you had, I think, V8 and below, excuse me, in the mill 2 axis, you had a facing operation where you had to go in and select a geometry. Now with this new facing, it's stock recognition basically. So if I set up my stock the way I want and how much I wanted to take off, it would see that. It's still going to see it right now. I can also choose my geometry if I want to. I don't need to because it's going to work off the stock wizard we have. So I'm going to go over here and say next. Now my total depth is actually going to cut off 100 there, so 0.1. But I'm going to move the stock up, or the tool up 0.1 also. So basically when it goes down to 0.1, it's going to be right across the top of this, okay? It's not going to be down 0.1 here, cutting into our material here. It's going to be just right at the top on there. Because I didn't select any of my geometry, I don't need to worry about the internal loops or the bounding box in here. And you'll notice whichever one I select, the other one grays out on me there on that. So I don't need to worry about that. And again, I got my clearance, rapid, and feed right there. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and hit next. Machine strategy, looking at the facing. If I want to add another facing operation from available operations, I can always bring it over, or I can get rid of one of them in there. So I got that option in there. From there, we'll go ahead and hit next. We get into our posting page. So again, if I would have set this up in the stock wizard there, under the global work offset G53 or work offset 3, I would see that showing up, or I can come here and then change it right there. 9 times out of 10, I've seen a lot of people just doing it right on the fly here. We're not working with any 4 axis here, so we don't need to worry about this rotary angle. From there, we're going to go ahead and hit next. We get into the tool. So with this facing, it just assumes that we're going to use a 1/2 inch tool. Again, I'm using just system tools today. I'm going to go into the tool crib. Here's the different libraries I can go into. I'm going to hit ML Rough and add from library. Now I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to choose this 1.5 inch face mill right here. And I'm just going to click OK. There it is right there. And then I'm going to come down here to the bottom right and click OK here. And again, if I want to, there's my setup right there. If I need to change my feeds and speeds, I can uncheck this right here. This activates everything in here. And I can set it up on the fly here. If I need to change my tool number, I can go ahead and double click in here and change this to maybe tool 1, hit enter, and say OK. If you have coolant on here, and you can use either flood, oil, mist, or air, or you can turn it off on there. So Tom's got a question there, pretty good question, and the answer is not right now. Can the coolant selection be set as a default for a specific tool? No, but that's a good question. Good feature request put in there on that. But yeah, see, these are good things about these live events here, is you get them with good questions. No, there isn't, Tom, unfortunately, but I will put that in for a feature request to our development guys. So how about a specific machine? I'm going to be batting 1,000 with you apparently here today, Tom. No, there's not. No, there's not. Now, there is, and now this is only a default for, you can set it as a default on here, set as a default, but again, that's going to set up everything on this page as the default, so that's probably not what you're looking for. You're looking for a specific, especially when you're going to the tool crib, ML Rough. I'm just using this as an example here. If I hit tool parameter, you should have an option in here, what I'm thinking for using for a coolant if you want for that tool. Is that kind of what you're looking for on that, Tom? I know on my machine, again, it's a router. And again, it's a 2007, I believe it is. Anyways, I've never on my, I've always, because the default's always flood. And I'll get to your question there in a second there, Tom. I've always left it on flood, and my machine will bypass that M call out every time. It'll just look at it and say, whatever, dude, and move on there, because I never had coolant on there. But I know there are some machines older than mine and different than mine also, milling machines, not routers, that will air out on their machine because they don't have any coolant or on there, so they'll, you know, air out on there. Let me see, okay, I got you there, Tom. Yeah, so, yeah, like I said, yeah, your machine's a little bit different than mine is. Like I said, I don't have any coolant on mine, so it doesn't activate that. Apparently yours does. So yeah, you can turn it to off here and hit to save as default. This will work well for you then. Every time you come in here, it's always going to be, you know, whatever that tool is. Again, it's going to save it, everything here as a default on this page. But again, you know, it's going to be off on there. But I'm also going to put in a feature request anyways for tool specific, having that option in there also for that. But yeah, definitely a good question there. Any other questions or anything? Excuse me. All right, so moving on here, we're going to hit next. We get into the patterns page. You want to do a zig, zigzag, adaptive. On there, you'll notice with the adaptive, all the other options go away in there. Doesn't matter what the geometry is selected. It's going to go ahead and you know, do a adaptive cutting in there. With zig or zigzag, you're going to be able to go on or off the workpiece if you want to. You can set a distance if you go off the workpiece, what direction do you want to go, in an X direction, Y direction, or a custom direction there. And you can set your angle right there. It could be like 25, 35, 45, 90 degrees. I don't care. We'll go in an X, and we'll start at the bottom here, bottom corner. And our step over amount. So again, this is kind of up to you and how you want to set that up. You can do 50%, or you can do, let's say, 30% step over. The first cut we can move over if we want to, instead of, leaving that extra space in there. We can kind of cut in there a little bit if we want to. You got those options in there. If you do zig, you got it's going to go in one direction on there if you need to. And with the adaptive, you'll have options in there for climb and conventional cutting. So we'll do zigzag on this one. We'll hit next. We get into the pattern. So if you want to leave a bottom allowance, you definitely can do that. We're going to do this in one step, but you also have an option in here to do multiple steps. We're going to hit lead. So this one has a vertical lead in or a parallel lead in. You can see what it's doing there. You can set the length there. We'll just do a vertical here. And whatever you do on the lead in, the lead out's going to do the same unless you uncheck it, and then you can choose something different in there. From there, we'll go ahead and hit next. We got our linking. So I like this now. You got direct. You can see what it's doing here and how it's going to link from toolpath to toolpath. So direct is basically a straight line across, or you can use an arc. And I like using an arc because it'll just kind of slow down a little bit here, make that arc, and then speed right back up into the cut there. Where with the direct, it will end right here, stop almost dead, move over, and then pick right back up and continue cutting on there. So it's kind of, I personally like the arc move in there. That's just me. So yeah, you got that option in there if you need to. From there, we'll go ahead and hit next. We get into advanced feed rates. Advanced feed rates you'll see on every one of our toolpaths, 2, 3 axis here. With the advanced feed rate, general override is going to be the standard that you're going to see on every one of our toolpaths. We can convert rapids into feeds, and different toolpaths going to have different options in there. Where this one we have, and you'll see it for profile the same way, chamfer the same on there, lead in and lead out percentage. So instead of going 100% of the feed rate, you can change it to either 30 on the lead in and 250 on the lead out. Whatever you want to do, you have those options in there. With that, you'll notice we have no more next. We got finish and compute. Finish will hold all our parameters, and we can compute them at a later time if you got multiple features that you're doing, or you can just go ahead and hit compute. And there's our toolpath right there. So with that here, you'll notice that it's picking up our geometry. The toolpath is actually going, right down to our level right here. If you right click on the facing or whatever toolpath you're working with, the third one down is this back plot. So with the back plot there, and I'm going to kind of slow the speed down because it's going to go by quick. And there it goes. With the bad part about it is if you do the back plot on there and you hit the, and it doesn't matter what speed you're using, if there's a straight line, it's going point to point. It's not going to just go zooming right across, making sure it looks good. It's going, don't rotate over. I'll slow it down even more, restart. You can see, point, move over. And you can rotate this around. And this is just so you can see it right on the fly here real quick if you need to on that. Again, if you want to see the tool information, you can down here. And any detailed information is down before. Here I'll tell you, feed rate rapid, start point, end point, direction it's going, that kind of stuff on there. And you can change it to transparent or wireframe, depending on what you're doing in there. So the back plot is actually kind of nice to kind of see right on the CAD screen, so you don't have to go into simulation every time, check it out, and then leave the simulation on there. So any questions with that right now? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and right click on that feature, and I'm going to come down here and blank it out. Now again, if I click on the facing, it shows up, and if I click on something other than facing, it will go away on there, and I can shrink it up. One thing I didn't go over here is these little arrows. These are the flyouts I was talking about earlier on there. If I hover over here or left click on it, you can see here I got program number 100. If I want to change in my G code, I know that it's going to be, let's say, 951 on there. I'll just hit apply, and then when we produce the G code in there, it will show up as the program number 951 in there on that. So that's what the flyouts are good for. Depending on what you're doing, you got this one here. You can come in here and if that should be unchecked there, you can change like on this facing here, even on any of the other toolpaths, you can change the spindle speed, cutting and plunge feed rate right on the fly on those flyouts. So you can do a number of different things with those flyouts. And honestly, I don't find it too much of a problem, especially in SolidWorks, but in the standalone, if you have your mouse over here like this, it'll show up, and for some reason it's hard to get rid of. SolidWorks I never had a problem with, and it works out well for me. I like it. All right, so let's go ahead and do a pocket operation on here. So we're going to go MultiAxis. We're going to click on Select Geometry. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this edge right here. Whoops. Let's try that again. And I'm going to go Loop Select. And choose, well, I guess it's not going to do what I want it to do. So I'm going to clear selection here, and I'll just do it the old-fashioned way. Maybe I would have done this one. There we go. That works for me right there. So I got my loop select here. Now I could have done that. I should have just gone through and just selected all 4 edges right there. That should have worked out fine. So I got my 4 edges there. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. Brings me back into the geometry selection window. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and hit Next. I got my feature page with my material approach right here if I need to adjust it. And then I also got my top of feature and total depth. Now my total depth, I'm going to go ahead and click on the bottom here, and I'm going to click that bottom edge, because I don't know how deep it is. It is 0.8, so it did calculate that properly for me on there. So that's, that's the total depth we're going. Then we have our extensions. What these are is if I have, right now we got closed geometry. If I have open geometry, which on this one they selected just these 3 edges right here. So basically the toolpath is going to start off the part, and it's going to end off the part either 50% of the tool, or if I click on the percentage right here, it'll change it to a distance, and I can set that distance. So whatever I do for the start, the finish will follow unless I uncheck it, and then I can change that to whatever I want on that. But because we're using closed geometry, we don't need to worry about that. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off, and I'm going to go ahead and hit Next. From here, this is my machine strategy page, or dynamic machine strategy here from earlier in that question somebody asked there. So in here, we're going to do a pocket operation. So I'll come right up here, and we'll do a profile finish at the end. Now, if there's anything that you want to bring over, you definitely can do that right here on that. So you can, if you want for whatever reason, bring an engrave over or a chamfer mill, you can do that. If not, we'll just go ahead and hit Next, and you'll notice the tree changed right here to a pocket with a profile finish. Tabs are if you got a lot of flat router guys out there. Maybe Tom may use these on his, if he's got multiple, if he's doing a lot of flat routering on there. Again, I'm just assuming there. If you got multiple parts, and say you got like a 4x8 sheet of material, and you got all these parts, we'll say, arrayed onto here. So you want to use this tabs, and what tabs will do, and you can set them up. You can apply tabs to something, and we can set a width, angle, and height. Now, usually angle we'll just leave alone at 90, but the width, we change that to, whatever width we want, and that's this width from line to line here. And then the depth, how deep do you want it? So a lot of times you'll keep it like, I usually left mine at like 0.05 on there. So at the bottom of the material, most of it's all going to be cut out except for, let's say this corner right here, it's going to have 0.05 of material left on there, and I can just take a razor knife and cut it off if I need to. But that's what tabs are usually used for, is a lot of flat router guys will use those if they need to on that. Well, we're not going to use those at all today, so from here we're going to go ahead and hit next. We get into the posting page. Again, we got our work offset, output, rotary angle, how do you want your code to come out in line or arc moves, depending on your machine and how your post is set up also in there. From there, we go ahead and hit next. We get into our tool page. You can see it's actually picking up our 1.5" face mill. We can come in here, hit tool crib. And the face mill might not be too bad if you want to use it, if it's not indexable. Let's go ahead and use, I'm going to just use my 3/8 tool. That's always my go-to tool. And we'll say okay. And again, I'm not going to worry about feeds or speeds or anything. Not worried about the coolant or anything. And I'm going to go ahead and hit next. Now with the pocket operation, I got standard pocket and I got advanced pocket. So I'll go standard pocket allows me to either do parallel, offset out, or offset in. I can start from the center, work our way out, or from the outside, work our way in. I got climb or conventional. I can use the spiral for a circular pocket in, and I got my step over amount. I usually use 30 on my pocketing operations. That's just my go-to number, but other guys that I've talked to, 40 or 60% of the step over usually works for them. 30 is just always my go-to number because, 40 to 60, a lot of times that's going to leave some material that the guys are doing a profile finish. I never did a profile finish when I did this. I always did a pocket, so 30 was my go-to number, and it cleaned up pretty well. Other things in here with the standard pocket, that's pretty much about it. But you also have advanced pocket, which adds in this more spiral, which doesn't matter what the geometry is, it's going to do a continuous more spiral around the part. And you can also do adaptive roughing or tricordial cutting in there with that. This also allows you, and you can use a parallel offset in or out here also. But the nice thing is, especially it comes down here, you have this rest roughing. So if I wanted to come in with another pocketing operation with a smaller tool, what's going to happen is on that second tool operation, I'll click on this rest roughing. You'll see the previous tool, the radius if there is, and the allowances will show up right here. So what this does is say, hey, he used that 3/8 to come in here and cut everything out in here. All I need to do now is just come into the corners and just cut the corners out. And that's it. Everything else is good. That's all the rest roughing is. I've done it a lot of times on projects I've done in the past. So it is really nice to use. So, going and getting areas that I need to pocket out, especially around lettering. I use that a lot on there. But here we'll do a pocket out here, 30%. We'll do a climb cut, one direction. That should be fine. Just go in a circle the whole time. And then from here, we'll go ahead and hit next. Now, by default, the pocket operation has this 15 thousandths side allowance in there. If you want to change that, you can definitely do that. Right now, we're looking at a total depth of 0.8. So it's going to do a single depth unless I check this off. And we always divide it by tool too. So it doesn't matter how deep it is. It can be like 4 inches. The software is always going to divide it by 2 on here. But if I want to take more steps than that, if I want to say, let's go, I don't know, 0.2, I can do that. And it's going to give me 4 steps. Or if I want to take let's say 6 steps, I'm going to go 0.8 divided by 6. So I took my total depth divided by how many steps I want to take, hit tab, and there's my total depth to cut each time on there. From there, we'll go ahead and hit next. We get into the lead. So with the pocket operation, you have plunge with single depth. So it's just going to plunge down, cut it out, plunge down, cut it out. Or you can use peck or fast peck in here and set the peck depth amount in there. So what it will do is they'll peck down to that first mount, cut it out, peck down to the second mount, cut it out, and so on in there. Or you can use ramp or spiral, and you notice the pecking also goes away also in there. We'll use plunge on this one, From there, we'll go ahead and hit next. We get into machine strategy or sequencing. So if you got multiple pockets you're cutting out, you can definitely choose a different sorting order here if you wanted to. Start location, you can change that up if you need to. From there, we get our linking. So we're going to be doing, what are we doing? Oh, advanced pocket. So if I use standard and went to linking, all you have is direct and direct. So from here to here, it's direct. And from one area to another area, it's also a direct. Now, because I'm using advanced, I have a direct for between groups and link, S link between, or full retract or retract on there. So I got different options when I use the advanced option in there also if I need to on this. But this is pretty basic, so I'm just going to use direct on this. From there, we got our advanced feed rates in there. So again, if you need to use the advanced feed rates, you can definitely do those. General override, link here, and then we got a standard or adaptive in there. We also got corner slowdown if you need to utilize those also. From there, we got our hit next, or you can hit finish. So it's looking at our finish tool as a 1/2 inch. We can always go in, and then with the finishing tool, it gives you all these different tool options in there. So if you want to use something different, you definitely can. For some reason, if you want to use a T-cutter, go ahead and use that. We'll go ahead and use NML Finish. We'll add from library, and we'll choose this 1/4 inch standard right there. We'll say OK. Everything's good. Notice I'm not worried about any feeds or speeds right now. From there, we'll go ahead and hit next. We got our cut pattern here, so we're going to use standard. You got either you can go system comp left, right, or off on there, and if you want, you can use machine comp G41, G42 also. From there, we'll go ahead and hit next. We get into our allowances, so you can see here it's set up for 0 under the finishing. We'll do a single step on this one because it's just going to do the perimeter right on the inside there. Should be good. From there, we go ahead and hit next. We got plunge with the single pack or fast pack ramp in there, and you can set the approach or maximum length if you want to. And then you can set in a lead in and lead out if you want. You can either use a parallel, right angle, circular, or a blend if you want. And you can set those lengths and stuff in there. And again, if you want to use something totally different on a lead out, you definitely can. From there, we'll go ahead and hit next. We get into corner types. So you can set up either sharp, round, loop, loop length, and the same for the internal, and you can see what it's doing in there. A lot of times I'll tell people using laser or plasma to use any of these, just because if you go around a sharp corner, instead of burning in there, you want to use one of these options in there, and you can set the parameters up so it's not too bad in there, so you get a nice sharp corner if you need to in there. Here I'm just going to use sharp and let the tool take care of it. It is going to make it a radius in there for us. I know that in there. It's not going to make a nice sharp corner in there. And then we got our sequencing if we need to utilize that. And then we got our advanced feed rates from there. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and hit compute. Let that take effect. And there it is right there. So I'm going to come up here and do a save as, and I'm going to save this. I'm going to keep the name the same. I'm going to go to desktop and just save it on my desktop. And yeah, I know it was saved in an older version. And there we go. So any questions or anything so far with this? And I'm going to go ahead and blank that out. That's just something I do on here. This is just an OCD of me. When I'm done with a feature, I will blank it out. And I also will collapse it there. So I know those are done. For me, at least. I may want to go back in and change those. So let's go ahead and right click and we'll go another MultiAxis here. Select geometry. And I'm going to try to do the loop select. There we go. That works. And let's go to the outside there. Let's let's clear the selection. I'm going to keep that as is. So I'm going to go ahead and say okay to that. Brings us back into the geometry selection, so you can you're going to see kind of the repetitive thing going on here in 2-axis, at least right now. Total depth, I'm going to go ahead and pick bottom here, and I'm going to say pick the bottom there. Now this is just a generic one, so I know it's 2 inches. I can go 1.5 if I want to, if I got it like on a fixture or something. I don't want to go all the way down for whatever reason. I can definitely do that. Again, same setup here. We're going to do profile, rough, and finish. That should be fine. Again, not worried about the tabs here. Posting should be fine. Tool setup. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use the 3/8 here, and the quarter finish tool should be fine with all that. Now here we got our profile rough. We got standard cut. What it's going to do, if I'm doing multiple step downs on there, it's going to make one revolution, come up out of the part, and back down. Do the same thing over and over again there. That's what the standard does. Contour ramping keeps the tool totally engaged the whole time, and it'll just corkscrew all the way down. Side roughing allows me to basically, for lack of a better term, an open pocket on here. So I can start on the outside and work my way in and down at the same time. And I can set my number of stock remaining. If I want to do a step over, I can activate that and set that up if I don't know the stock remaining. And I can set number of passes in there, and I can either go into zig or zigzag motion in there. I'm not worried about that because we don't have any stock to worry about, so we'll just do standard on this one, and that should be fine. In fact, let's do contour ramping. Everybody knows what standard is. And we'll go ahead and hit next. We also got the system comp. Software will dictate, right or left on there, or off. And we can do machine comp G41, G42, just like in the profile finish toolpath there. So here, again, we'll leave 15 thousandths. Now, depth by pass, or per pass, or angle. If you know the angle, you can set that up. I usually set depth per pass on there. So I'm going 1.5 inches down, so I'm going to go 1.5 total depth divided by, let's say, 7 steps. And it's going to go down every time, 21.43 every time on there. For this one, it's okay. I got my lead in and lead out. Again, if you need to set those up, I'm just going to leave them as is for right now. Our corner types, machine sequencing, and advanced feed rates if I need to utilize that. I'm going to use the same tool here for the finish pass here. I got my patterns here, my machine parameters here, my lead in and lead out if I need to utilize those or I want to. And I got my corner types, machine sequencing, because I only got one, and my feed rates here if I need to utilize those. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and hit compute. And you'll notice in here, I think this, that toolpath is actually on the inside. We need to flip that on the outside here. So we'll go back to the solid. So I'm going to go to default change start point here. I'm going to right click, and I can either hit modify, which allows me, if I hit modify, allows me to change my start point to maybe the middle here, and then I can change the direction also by left clicking on the back end of that arrow. And then I'll just come right over here and say okay, right click on feature 2-axis and compute all toolpath, and there it is right there. So instead of starting on that corner, I'm just starting on this edge right here on that. Any questions or anything so far? So I'm going to come up here and hit save where I'm at. Let's see, corner types. Please go over those again. All right, Jordan. Yeah, so with the corner types, I don't worry about those too much in the milling part of it. Let's see, edit. Corner types. I know that what this is going to do is it's going to go, and you can see a sharp right here on the outside on here. So it's just coming right here, and then stopping and going in a different direction. I can also add a round, and let's see, And you see the corner type, it's kind of easy on the outside here. So you can see the corner type right there. It's just kind of rounding over on there instead of making a sharp corner. But you also got other options in there for loop radius. And a lot of times I use the corner types as mostly in, like I said, plasma and laser, because they don't need to burn around that sharp corner sometimes in there. So we use like a loop length, loop radius in there, or even a triangle. So that toolpath comes up, comes out here a little bit, makes a little jog, and then goes in a different direction on there. Just recently, I have seen milling guys using this bisect line, and the reason why they use and they're making stairs on there. And so the side profile on there, when they're making the relief, they'll go in that corner instead of, stopping right here and going up and over. They go in and do this little bisect line in here. So they got this little relief so they can put the tread inside there and then come out and then up on there. So on that, let's see, can you remove an inside radius of if it's drawn sharp? So yeah, with the inside radius, it is going to leave a radius anyways on there. Like on this one, on the pocket operation, it's going to leave what, an eighth in there because I got a 1/4 inch. So it's going to leave a radius in there. Smaller tool, I go in there. It's because what it's going to do is just going to come here, go in as far as it can, and then come across here. We'll see it in the simulation here in a minute on there. There's really not a way, because it's a round tool, it's just going to be a radius. I mean, you can go in with smaller tools, and I've done that before, just try to get as much sharp corner I can if I needed to use that. There's other tools I could have used, but if I was using a router on there. So there, there's reason why you'll probably end up using one of those sometimes if you need to. Let's see. With that, you can't, let's see, corner types. With the round, no, you can't on there. If you're using, sharp and round, there's basically not much you can do with those. But with the loop radiuses, length, triangles, you probably can. You can set in a length, a minimum, and maximum angle if you want to set that up. That's probably the only things you can do. But other than that, it's all going to be set up in your drawing, basically, with that in there. And I'll show you here in a second. Let me make sure, yeah. So let me go ahead and hit save. So with that right now, what I'm going to do is go over here to simulation here. So I just hit simulation up here. This is going to open up our simulation window. And with the facing, because I set the top apart above 0.1 and my total depth at 0.1, we're not going to see any stock removal on here. Let me go ahead and slow this down here. And again, because it's a point to point, now it's doing the wrong thing there. I don't know why I did the profile cut first. It started from the outside. Should have done the pocket first. Now I'll change that here in a minute. And because of the way the tool's set up, you can see here, and I'm not worried about the red in there right now. It's just the way this tool was set up in there. There wasn't enough flute in there. I think the other one showed up like down here. But anyways, so yeah, you can see it's got a little bit of radius in there. It's probably an eighth in there. Even though I drew it as or it was drawn, I didn't draw this. It was drawn as a sharp corner in there, because that tool can't go all the way in there, because there's not, it's going to say, hey, you can only go so far. And of course, it's going to leave an eighth of a radius in there. You could make that bigger. Of course, it's going to be set up in your drawing that way, that you'll have to do that. But other than that, that's probably really the only things you can do with that so far in there. Any questions? Any other questions or anything? Oh, you meant, okay, the outside. No, again, that's probably no. That's gonna be the same answer there. No, with the corner types sharp and round, yeah, you can't make anything bigger on there unless you use a bigger tool. That's the only thing you can think of in there. But yeah, other than that, outside's gonna be a little bit different on there. And again, that's just gonna be a radius on the outsides here. So let me exit out of simulation here, and let's go ahead and go under corner types. We'll go round on there. Oops, nope. Actually, I'm not too worried about it because it's only going to show. So if we go into simulation here, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's see, profile rough. I'm going to slow this down. Actually, I'm going to run this around the corner. So I'm going to go into move list here. And you can see that it's just rolling around the edge there. And again, on straight areas, it just goes. So again, if I would have made a oversize on that, you would probably see a little bit difference in there. But with the sharp, basically what it's doing is going to go here, basically stop momentarily, get to the position, and then come in this direction, where the round on here is basically continuous movement on there. So it should round off the corners on there. Does that kind of make sense there, Jordan? Yeah, and moving on there. So with this part here, if everything works out the way you want to here, you can come right up here, create an NC program right here, and that generates all your G code. So there's all your G code there. I noticed I didn't do a post and save as, I just did a post on there. I can right click in the middle of that G code and I can hit save as. I can also open up this NC editor here. Which first time it opens up, it always takes a minute here. A little longer than I would like it to, especially during these live events. We can open up anytime here. I even do this with the standalone. I probably should have opened it up earlier and got to at least go in there. All right, so let's do this. No license found. Yeah, right. If it doesn't open up, I'll have to... There we go. All right, sometimes you just got to do that on there. Yeah, honestly, to answer your question there, Tom, yeah, it does. First time it does open up too long. So what I did was on that initializing, I just hit the red X and it showed no license found. So I just reopened it. And for some reason, it just, I don't know, it does that. You can see we're human too over here at BobCAD. But again, I'm not going to go into the pro side of this, but you can see here, here's, you know, even with the standard, you're going to get all the color combinations in there, all your, you know, raw text right here, your program number, you can see right there, 951, which I put in on there, all our G codes, all one color, T call outs, H, D call out, your spindle, your X and Y's, all different colors here. Z's are definitely a different color on there. So yeah, you can come in here. You can use this basically as a glorified notepad if you want to. I've had some people do that for whatever reason. I don't recommend that. You know, if there's something that you take out all the time, maybe like sequent numbers, give us a call. We'll be happy to take those out if you need to in your post. Also, other people will use this as under the tools tab here. You got the start DNC transfer. And I don't have any RS2 cabling set up or anything. So again, you can set up your port, your baud rate, your parities, data bits, that kind of stuff if you need to, flow control, that kind of stuff. And then your communication protocols there if you need to on there. So that's kind of the basics on the NC editor there. So again, you can use it as glorified notepad. You can also use it to send and receive from your RS2 cabling there. But all right, well, let's go ahead and break here for lunch. We'll come back at 1 p.m. Eastern time, and then we'll pick it up from there and look at some other toolpaths there. We'll see you guys soon.